So I guess, in a sense, if we were to go back to that continuum about stress, before you get to the next stoplights of anxiety, burnout, and depression, we know from these surveys that a lot of lawyers are experiencing discontent with how their life is going. And I guess the purpose of attending these seminars and having these seminars is to help educate you, at least from my own story, about what kind of red flags you should be looking for. For me, stress, anxiety went on too long, and I started to suffer from depression. And physical symptoms were the first thing to happen. I felt tired all the time, even when I gulped down 5 or 6 cups of coffee. My legs felt like there was cement running through them. My sleep became disturbed. My appetite changed. I went to my family doctor, a great guy, and described all the symptoms. And he said, Dan, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I think you may be suffering from depression. I want you to see a psychiatrist. Well, you might as well have said, Dan, I want you to go see a witch doctor, because I had no interest in seeing a psychiatrist. I was, in my own mind at that time, a superhero. I was the one who fixed problems for people. I wasn't a person who needed to be fixed. It only later on, it became obvious that I did need fixing, and that a lot of parts of my life were broken. I went to the psychiatrist, and I'll never forget that day. It was a waiting room out in the suburbs, and I kind of snuck in because I didn't want anybody to see me, because I thought I'd be embarrassed if a fellow lawyer saw me going to a psychiatrist. And the waiting room was about this big, and there were about 40 chairs in it, and there was one other person sitting in the waiting room. It was absolutely the loneliest day of my life. I felt horrible. I felt lonely. I felt like a freak for being there. And I sat there and I thought, boy, it's really come to this, that I have to see a psychiatrist. And it's hard to describe that loneliness. My wife didn't know about it. Nobody knew about it except me. Excuse me for taking off my jacket. It's like the Bahamas in here with those lights. I saw the psychiatrist, and he explained to me that what I was suffering from was no different than heart disease or diabetes, and that was a revelation to me. I could put a label on my symptoms, and I could take medicine that I hoped would help my symptoms. And he told me it'd take about 8 weeks to kick in, but I had to make some changes in the meantime, maybe take some time off of work. So it came time to tell my fellow partners about this. And they're normally a jovial bunch, as opposed to those grim-faced people I was talking about earlier. And they thought I was calling the meeting to announce that I was leaving the firm. I'm sure they thought that, because they had fearful looks in their eyes, So we're sitting in a circle, and my voice was quaking at the time. I was the managing partner. And I said, I have something important to tell you. I'm suffering from clinical depression, and I'm taking medicine, and I need to take some time off. The one partner, it seemed like he leapt up from his chair. I'm not sure if he did, looking back on it, but I thought he did, and said, what the hell do you have to be upset about? What do you got? What right do you have to be sad about anything? You got a great job. You're managing partner. You work with a wonderful group of people. You have a wonderful wife and children. When he said that, I felt about 1 inch tall, not that big. My other partner, who was nodding like this, as if he understood, he didn't understand, but he pretended he did. He was nodding and said, Dan, you at 95% is better than any lawyer I know. And both those reactions are common reactions to people who have depression. The first reaction to say to me, you know, the bottom line is basically, why aren't you more grateful in your life? Why don't you appreciate these good things? We often tell people to snap out of it or belittle them. In my case, it felt like he was shaming me. Shaming me. He was almost implying, or he was implying, that I had control over this thing. Certainly that it wasn't an illness. It was more a question of my attitude. The other partner, who was nodding and smiling, he reminded me of, you know, those toys, the bobbleheads? That's what it kind of reminded me of. Me at 95%. I said, Jesus Christ, 95%? I'm at 25%. And I think that's a common reaction. Denial. Denial.